𝖉'𝕺𝖐𝑑o humano, mas aquela sarrada no ar. Faz passinho romano, mas aquela sarrada no ar. Faz passinho romano.
The Gaia Theory: How to Define Life. The Gaia research program was initially proposed by the English chemist James Lovelock, based on his studies carried out by him for NASA, in partnership with the philosopher 𝖉'𝕺𝖑𝖎ₐ during the 1960s. These studies were intended to provide means for detecting life on other planets. The Gaia theory is usually seen as scientific theory, but it is science as much as it relies strictly upon scientific studies and experiments. The experiment or studies must follow the scientific method, and the theories upon it, such as Gaia theory, must be free from tendencies such as religion, scientificism. What a weird word. But we can clearly see the hypothesis side of Gaia, with tendencies and personal opinion. There's no problem with that. Science, the author, differentiates it, and we, as readers, also know how to differentiate. Philosophers are the creators of the scientific method. Also should philosophers determine if something is or not scientific. Part of the function of philosophy is to analyze the scientific data. I would try to catch the central problem of Gaia hypothesis or theory and answer it by the eyes of philosophy. To say that something is a living organism, we should at least know what is it to be alive. For those individuals interested in the Earth and its workings, the Gaia hypothesis is an interesting concept to consider. Throughout the personal study of the natural science, living and non-living systems are considered individually, but not as an entire living system as the Gaia hypothesis suggests. The hypothesis resembles the study of ecological science, but it goes a step further by trying to explain why the Earth has remained as it has for years with a relatively constant temperature and oxygen concentration. The idea of a living planet, Gaia, is not recent in the science. More than 200 years ago, James Hutton, considered the father of geology, described the planet Earth as a living superorganism and suggested that his study would be carried out from the physiology, biological science that studies the functions of organic beings. Hutton published The Earth Theory, a book, in 1789, in which he states that the biosphere recycles organic matter continuously, but found a marked isolation between the science. Biologists took for random the physical-chemical changes of the planet and Earth. Science ruled out the impact of life globally. The isolation of the natural science generated separation between areas of knowledge that made it difficult to integrate them to obtain a holistic model of life on a planet Earth, not planet land. I would try to catch the central problem of Gaia theory and answer it by the eyes of philosophy. Gaia theory comes with the central problem of intention or intentionality. When we say that the mechanism of self-regulation exists in function to favor life, an old philosophical word appears: teleology, the idea that things exist and work in order to finish a function, but all modern science was born in opposition to it. Besides the fact that I am supporting science here, there are questions that only science could answer. For example, if Earth temperature is 𝑉'𝕺𝖑𝖎ₛ because it has life, or is it, for example, is Earth temperature 𝑉'𝕇 because it has life, or it has life because the temperature is 𝑉'𝕇? The answer only could come from science. The confrontation between Gaian theory and conventional science is largely focused on a few key words. Gaia is like a living organism whose goal is to maintain the planet in a state fit for life. How can a planet be alive? It's really hard to define life, a task given to science but almost impossible without the judge of philosophy. We could start by exclusion method. For example, life would not be possible only from the reproductive point of view, as it would exclude postmenopausal women, for example. Neither could it be defined by entropy reduction because it would include refrigerators. Lovelock's emphasis on physiological self-regulation as the defining characteristic of lifelike systems, networks of interacting processes that serve to regulate one another in order to sustain an organism functioning. Gaia theory basically implies that Earth tends to regulate itself in order to maintain certain balance of temperature and other characteristics that can maintain life on Earth. The truth is that neither science nor philosophy has achieved consensus. Lovelock's theory would be correct if the definition of life that he gave was fit, but it isn't. Claiming that our planet is self-regulated is to claim a self to an inanimate being and that it also has intention in regulating the atmosphere in order to sustain life. I really have a huge claim. Writing in Nature, Tim Lenton has proposed that if the physical system is stable and the biological system has self-increasing growth, and there is a physical optimum for growth, then the steady state will be whichever side of the optimum leads to negative feedback, thus enhancing the stability of the physical system. The optimal for life in the original Gaia hypothesis is replaced by mutually enhanced stability of the physical and biological system. The hypothesis was branded as mystical by some scientists, especially Darwinists, who ridiculed the Gaia as a personified entity that continuously controls the climate of the planet. Lovelock states that Gaia refers to a living planetary entity without necessarily implying the existence of a consciousness. More controversy arose when qualifying the planet as alive. While there is no rigorous method to separate the living matter of the inert, Lovelock considers that living matter does not separate its inert environment for having evolved together, being life a known individual planetary property. The characteristics of being alive. James Monod listed the characteristics of life in his book, Chance and Necessity, 1970, where he highlight that three characteristics, properties of being living: teleonomy, morphogenesis, autonomous, and reproductive invariancy. Teleonomy refers to the property of all living beings to be endowed objects of a project that they represent their structures and meet their achievements. The autonomous morphogenesis indicates that the structure of a living being results from processes that seem to owe almost nothing to the action of external forces, but morphogenetics interactions of the same object. The external conditions are capable of disrupting development, but incapable of directing it or of imposing the being I live in your organism, being alive in your organization. Lastly, the reproductive invariance is the possibility to reproduce and transmit. 𝖉'𝕁. I don't know why is this word here, but later I will correct and better explain what is right here. The information pertaining to your own structure. Monod recognized the exception that they supposed to the autonomous morphogenesis. The crystals or characteristics geometry is a reflection of microscopic interactions. Pluto, Venus, and Earth. The planets of our solar system have God's person's names. Why is that? Humans have a primitive animalistic tendency to adjective inanimate beings or things as animated, usually, as far as I saw, with human-like conscious. A rock is never a dumb rock, but a human-like rock. We can catch this humanity-like in Gaia as a planet that has an intention of maintaining life, thing that only humans do have. We tend to suppose, especially by vision, life or animated spirit to anything, a kind of pareidolia. Maybe it's a way of seeing patterns. We imply an inner conscious to inanimate things. Último texto. Conclusion: we still believe in the maybe even more improbable idea that life has changed in its way. Casually, not big change occurred since we started developing, and life just adapted to it in order to survive. It's not a matter of Earth, but a matter of life. But Gaia hypothesis is a still good scientific theory proposing the study of life on Earth not by separate components, but as a whole, by a microvision. I also understand that the power of seduction of the Gaian hypothesis comes from the animism or mysticism, especially for those interested in the hypothesis for environmentalistic reasons. But we should exclude those mystical aspects and keep only the cybernetic and philosophical aspects. Implications that explain why philosophy should be concerned with the science. In science, each field is independent and by itself, example, geology, biology, etc. Sometimes even as one. Philosophy is the macrovision that science lacks. For the not convinced reader, I should remind that gaps and discrepancies in theory imply a case for serious further study, not necessarily a reason to panic and immediately abandon any consideration of the idea. Purity in study and analysis, function, or even existence does not exist. Everything is composed and simultaneous. Also, I would like to remind that what could do is to see Gaia as not alive, but a system that tends to favor life. Not a live Earth, but an unanimate Earth that tends to favor life. But it would imply that this system was created by a alive being that programmed this system with the intention of sustained life.